Welcome to Ride the Stream. Today's episode's a little bit different. We are actually going to do a kind of a revisit to the entire season one, talk a bit about the characters, storylines, surprising reveals, some of the flashbacks, favorite drama moments, humorous moments, of course. There's maybe a few of those, as well as some of the, call out some of the guest performances as well. We're not going to go and give a recap of the entire season. We definitely invite you to go back to our prior episodes and listen to our colorful, insightful, funny, tragic. We run the gamut when we talked about the different plots over the season. So definitely go back and check out those, particularly after we go through our recap today. So, anyway, again, welcome. I'm Michelle. I'm your co-host, and with me, of course, is my good friend, Travis. How are you doing this morning?
Not too shabby. Um, I spent the last couple days revisiting some of the scenes in Lost to try to because even though we just went through this whole season, I've already forgotten. Like it was hard to think about some of the humorous moments that have happened, and we were talking offline about how Hurley's episode was episode 18, and I already forgot about some of those moments, which were actually pretty funny. I'm looking forward to this. There's a lot that happens in the season, which makes it kind of like heavy and intense throughout. So being able to break it apart and highlight some of those moments that are a little softer is kind of a nice, along with obviously there's some there's some high impact drama in there that's unavoidable to like revere and the way that the creators have put the show together. So this is a nice way to wrap up the season.
Yeah, definitely. And, I was just looking when you were saying about trying to I remember things. I actually went back, so this is kind of like the behind the scenes info for people that want to be in the know about our recording schedule. We actually started recording November, very early November of 2024. And last week, so the end of March 2025 is when we wrapped up recording all of our episode discussions. There was a total of 25. So, and we were doing typically 1 to 2 a week. I think we had a couple of weeks in there where we had some other engagements that we weren't able to meet that week or whatever. So, but generally we were doing 1 to 2 recordings a week. Um,
Yep.
so that's a little bit of the behind the scenes. So, um, it does kind of does play with your memory a little bit, which would have been in keeping with originally watching the first season on broadcast television, which of course was once a week, or just kind of looking at their uh, broadcast schedule was a little bit longer as well because there'd be 2, 3, 4 weeks between episodes,
Yeah.
which was very interesting. And I don't know why. And I've been leery because as the newbie, I didn't want to go back and try to find out why there might be gaps in their broadcast schedule. I don't want to
Yeah, because
get
you don't
any
want to find any
spoilers.
spoilers. Yeah.
So, um, well, to kind of get going with things, if you haven't watched the first season, we do encourage you to go do that, because there'll probably be a number of spoilers in this episode, as there are in every episode that we record, because we are doing kind of a deep dive, and in kind of insightful, hopefully insightful discussion about the series. So, with that in mind, if you need to, go back, take a look at our other episodes, and of course, go and stream it right now. Not to be, plug Netflix, but it is on Netflix, and that's where I think both of us watched it. So
Yep.
that's just one streaming platform that you can go to. US Netflix, by the way, since, this is worldwide uh, availability of our YouTube channel. So anyway, with that in mind, I think we're going to start with discussing our kind of primary characters. There's quite a few. I think there's four, six, eight, about 10. There's three in there that we kind of grouped together as a couple because it made sense to do them like that. And I think even their flashbacks are kind of coupled. So,
Yeah.
um, wow, I managed to miss one. So, well, I'm gonna type that in right now so I don't forget. Um, anyway, so I think it's natural to start with Jack. He is actually the first person that we see in the opening of the premiere first episode. He is kind of lost, confused. The camera is tight in on his face and slowly draws back to reveal this kind of beautiful paradise, um, you know, sandy beach, gorgeous locale. But he's in I think he's in a blazer, no tie, and he does definitely look out of place. And as the camera continues to pull back and kind of come up behind him, we then see the devastation of an airplane that has crashed on a beach. And as he sees, we also see several survivors, people laying on the ground that aren't moving. Um, just complete devastation in this very beautiful paradise locale. Jack is a doctor, and he kind of naturally gets right into that emergency room doctor mode, where he starts assessing, trying to figure out who has the highest priority and who can wait for medical assistance. So that I think we'll start there with Jack as kind of our first person. Um, Now, Travis, you kind of took an interesting approach of kind of reviewing each person and jotting down a few key words. So for Jack,
Yeah.
what were some of your key words for him?
Well, also, what's amazing is when I think of Jack, I think of that opening scene first.
Hmm.
Like it's such an incredible introduction, not only to like his character, but the entire show. Um, so when I was thinking about the characters, I was like, just words to describe them. I listed Jack is goodwill, misery, and unbalanced certainty. Um, so those were the first adjectives that came to my mind to describe him. And when I thought of goodwill, I thought of that opening sequence of
Hmm.
him not really caring about his own personal health or safety and trying to help others and have others help him help others. Um, and as we see throughout the season, like there is a sense of, I don't know, he has a bit of self-loathing, where I think he just from his upbringing and, you know, repeating phrases that he was told by his father of not being good enough and,
Hmm.
you know, he can't be a good leader. And so I feel like he always has that on his mind. Um, and the uncertainty is tied to that, I think, where I know in one of the recent episodes he told Kate, like, no one wants to be a leader until I make a decision they don't like. Um, But I think there's many times in this season where he's just like, I don't know what to do. Like I don't know where players run off to, or I don't know where Shannon is when Boone got hurt,
Hmm.
um, and I think him not knowing things bothers him, because I think he really likes having control. Um, but that opening sequence, like as great as it is, you don't get to see all the nuances of his character until you have to go through the entire season, which is why the season is so good,
Hmm.
because you get to spend so much time. Well, not with all the characters, but with a lot of the characters. There's
Hmm.
some we'll talk about it, but characters we'd like to have had more screen time. But he's definitely one of the top screen getters of the season. Um, is there a way that you approach this, or how you would describe Jack?
I just created a list. And honestly, I didn't really think about um any keywords. I wish I had because I think that that might have been helpful for me. But I do like the words that you had. I think he's the reluctant hero. I would add to your list,
Yeah, that's a really
because
good one.
he does become kind of the natural leader. He's the medical, subject matter expert, and because of his experience, being able to excel in an emergency situation, I do think propelled him into the primary leader throughout the season. He was very reluctant, and he did push back on wanting to. He didn't want to be necessarily the leader. He didn't want to have that responsibility. Um, but I like that you mentioned that he does tell Kate, most recently, I think was in the last couple of episodes as we finished up the season, that, everybody wanted him to be the leader, except when he makes a judgment call or a decision that they're not happy with, and then they are angry with him or distant with him. And, at the end of the day, he has his own luggage that he's carrying on his back. And we see that a lot in his flashbacks. Um, and as you said, it does stem from his relationship with his father. We see in flashbacks that his father was an alcoholic. He made some bad decisions in the emergency room, and Jack took the high road because he is kind of a moral compass through the first season. He actually does reveal to the hospital board that his father had been drinking during an emergency operation that his father was responsible for, and the patient died. And so it took a lot for Jack to, at first he kind of goes with the flow with his father. And then when he finds out a key piece of information about the uh, patient that passed away, he's like, I I can't condone that. And gosh, how hard that is, as a younger adult. I mean, what, probably late 20s or something at that point. It's early in his career, I believe. But to have to go against your father, and a very domineering father as that expects success, but to fall in line, to also be willing to prove uh, your muster and your strength, and to kind of minimize any of your flaws and discount them. To grow up in that kind of family, that's, has its dysfunction. And then for Jack to have to be a leader and basically kind of bring people in line and deal with that. One of the things that I liked about his storyline in the flashbacks is as such a rational and very logical person, he has to deal with fatigue, exhaustion, and that brings on apparitions of his father. And I like how Locke was able to kind of steer him, guide him, and I'm going to say almost spiritually guide him to embrace those apparitions of his father and come to terms with some of that residual baggage that he had relating to his father, because we do find out in the flashbacks that his father has passed away, and he is has gone to Australia to claim his father's remains and then accompany them back to LA where they're going to have the funeral. So on the plane is his father's remains. And we do see that in flashbacks. I particularly like that as Jack, the leader, how he had a lot of interactions with many of the other characters that we see. Most particularly, I'm going to say Kate, who developed, they kind of develop a little bit of a love, connection there. Um, and just his natural connection with Charlie, Saeed, his kind of tenuous relationship with Locke, um, and Sawyer,
Yeah.
obviously, and some of the others. But I like Jack. But he does kind of represent many things that we as viewers go through, our dysfunctions with our families and dealing with how do we mediate parental um, disappointment of our, growth into adulthood and what that means for us. And at the same time, how do we, as children becoming adults, mediate our relationship with our parents as we become our own person? So I really liked how Jack represents some of that.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting when you point out him going to the board and being honest about what happened because his dad, I mean, there's an expectation of blind loyalty to where it's like, I mean, he tries to manipulate Jack by kind of self-deprecation of not being there for him and all that, but um, it doesn't stop the fact that his father was wrong while in surgery and being intoxicated and
Hmm.
um, clearly it not being the first time. So
Yeah.
um, yeah, it's always interesting to see characters who grow up in a way who branch away from the I don't know. I mean, toxic could be from toxic relationship. There are a few toxic relationships. That would definitely be one of them. So it's Jack's character is one that I think it's hard not to find some common ground with him.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, he's definitely a very interesting character throughout.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mentioned Kate, so I think maybe transitioning to Kate's character, we do see her in the first season or in the first episode. She actually ends up caring for Jack I think, towards the end of the first episode. He's actually injured, and when he goes off, he tries to um, self-medicate himself, or first, give first aid to himself. And I found it interesting that. he kind of separated himself from the others in order to kind of check on himself. And Kate happened to come along, and that's how we got introduced to Kate. She is a little, shy about having to perform first aid on him. She actually has to sew
Yeah.
or stitch up a cut on his back. What an introduction, but she accepts the challenge. And that's obviously one of the things that I think we like about Kate is that she has a strength. She's a great female character, um, role model sort, but also very mysterious. And Travis, what kind of words did you use to describe Kate?
Um, I listed Kate as determined, a
Mhm.
good friend, and dangerous to know. Um, um, she was based on her flashbacks, obviously. Um, and she was the one who was, accompanied by Marshall on the plane. Um, you know, obviously the Marshall's injuries aren't her fault. Um, and you could argue probably that her friend's death in the flashback sequence isn't her fault because he refused to get out of the car. So he
Mhm,
was making a choice there. Um, back to the farmer where the car flips and but we also find out that she is willing to sacrifice her safety or chance to escape to help others. Um, so I think she might be the most complicated character of the season. Um, just because we still have a lot of unanswered questions about, why was she running from the law? Um, and the fact that her mother was afraid of her for some
mhm,
reason. Um, so, but she does seem to form tight bonds. Like early on, she's like gets close with Jack and Charlie.
mhm.
Um, even though and I still love the sequences. I think it's in the first episode where she's worried about Jack and he's just like, "Hi, I'm Charlie. I'm here too." Like you can.
Yeah.
So, she I think has, you know, she's rightfully not wanting to declare her status as a fugitive to anyone. Um, so that makes sense. I don't blame her for that. But we also see that she can handle herself. I think she knows how to fight. She knows how to handle a weapon. I'm still enamored with that one sequence where like I think she gets tossed a lighter in the dark and she catches it with her left hand with
Mhm.
one hand. I just find that it's just one of those tiny details that gives a little bit to I don't know, it gives her capabilities a little more credibility for something that's so simple, and that's just me. But um, yeah, I think I don't know. Did we see less of her as the season, like towards the end of the season,
I do
when
feel
it
like
was
we did. Like we had some buildup and then we had her flashback. Well, we had two. I think we
yeah, a
had
couple
two for
flashbacks for
her.
her.
Um, uh, Prior to the Exodus episodes, we had a second kind of flashback episode with her. So we did get, I think she's probably one of the more fleshed out characters, but she's also, like you said, very mysterious. And I really like how the writers included just those little nuggets within episodes that left you like the one with the catching the lighter with her left hand, and just different little things like that. This just made her very capable, very determined, as you said, but like the third term, very mysterious. We do know that she's been involved with a bank heist. She was, didn't want to be the cause of her childhood friend and kind of first love, Tom, how she was an accessory to his death. But obviously, like you said, her mom is scared of her, so there's other things that have happened in Kate's life that led up to her mom being very nervous and scared um, about her daughter. So I do feel like Kate's, while she's determined, she's also, I'm going to say her weaknesses is also her fight or flight, and the fact that her natural reaction is to take flight and to run. And we see that in different places throughout the first season. Um, that she wanted, like, for instance, on the raft, because she starts realizing that if she if they are rescued on the island, it's hard for her to be able to mediate or frame that she's somebody else, that she's not a fugitive. And that all comes to light. Sawyer kind of like airs her dirty laundry right there on the beach,
Yeah.
in true Sawyer fashion. And you do kind of feel for her. Um, you do kind of feel for her because there is good in her. And we're trying to figure out, well, how can she be this bad when she seems like she's such a good person, what we're seeing on the island? Where
Yeah.
early on, Jack says, we're all on the island. This is a do-over. This is the tabula rosa of all these survivors. So, does that really work? Probably not, because you still have the baggage, you still have to deal with it. And unfortunately for her, it gets aired because she probably has the most secrets, one of the individuals with the most secrets that is the most damaging to themselves.
Yeah.
Um, and the way that, we don't know what she's guilty or presumed guilty of. So I know I'm hoping in season two that we'll get more Kate's story and that we'll find out more about her. Um, and just as an aside, I'm also very curious if, season two will continue to have as many flashbacks or if they'll be more focused on what's transpiring on the island. Because in the season finale, we had a lot going on in the island, as well as the
Yeah.
waters, around the island. So I think that'll be very interesting to see. I definitely liked Kate's interactions, I think, obviously with Jack, but her kind of, I'm going to say, affinity to align with Sawyer, because Sawyer is a bad boy and he's very overt bad boy, where Kate is bad girl, but it's, subdued. So I kind of like how the writers are very yin yang about how they've developed the characters.
Yeah.
So I think that where she's more subtle about her past, Sawyer just wears it out on his sleeve, it feels like. And so it's not surprising that they would kind of get along, um, because they do have things in their past that a lot of similarities to them.
And
So,
she tries to open him up to where,
yeah.
I mean, I think she's probably the real reason why Sawyer becomes more involved with the community
Hmm.
rather than just being a hermit and stockpiling resources. Um, she tells him, "Hey, you got to put in some effort too." If he's, she just says, "Hey, you can't do it alone." Like,
Hmm.
and I think she's just a very likable character. There's several times where we see her sitting down with Jack on the beach or Charlie or Saeed, and you know, and a lot of it is she's willing to listen and check up on her friends to see how they're doing. Um, so despite her unknown past, she's definitely one of the more likable characters. And I think we talked about how, or at least for a good part of the season, she seemed like the like kind of the glue that was keeping everyone together. So,
Hmm.
um, yeah,
Yeah. So I think one of the next people that we see on the beach is Hurley. And I feel bad because I left him off my list. And then I'm like, but I think that Hurley is one of those characters that, again, is a glue to the group.
yeah,
But he's often overlooked at times for his contributions to the island. And I feel bad because I really like Hurley.
same.
And he had a, a lot of fun moments throughout the first season, and he did give us a lot of humor as well. Um, and I'm going to put you on the spot because it wasn't on the list, but if you were to describe Hurley in a few words, Travis, what would those be?
I did have him. I did write a few words for him.
Oh, excellent.
Um, I said Hurley is a people person.
Hmm.
He's shy to a degree, and he's upbeat.
Mm,
Um, I think he recognizes just what people need. Um, like that one episode where he builds the golf course.
mhm,
I mean, I do think he's kind of this social butterfly. But like you said, I think he's underappreciated. Um, and people don't seem to necessarily go to him to help with problem solving. Um, and I don't know where that stems from, but um, I think Hurley's great. I mean, him and Charlie, I think, are the reasons for a lot of the lighthearted moments in the season. Um, and he has a lot of developing to come, I feel like, because he only got the one flashback episode. You could say the finale, the main
mhm.
part of that flashback was him, so maybe you could count that as two. Um, but I think he's great. He's definitely one of my favorites. Uh, he seems to recognize, I think similarly to Kate, where, you know, if there's a problem, the main focus is, all right, we got to find a way to work it out.
Hmm.
And I don't know. I'm thinking about him building that golf course and Charlie or Jack asking what he's doing, and he's just got this giddy look on his face and smiling. He's just like, oh, like he wait and see.
Yeah.
Um, and I, and those are the moments I think are really needed on this show.
Hmm.
Because we've talked about how there are so many intense moments where you feel like, oh, or I feel like I'm holding my breath,
Yeah.
getting through the scene, and all of these lighthearted moments really help to balance out the tension that builds throughout various episodes. Um, yeah, um, I'm fond of Harry, or not Harry, of Hurley. Fondness is a great word for him.
Oh,
Um,
definitely. And he's like he would be the person that you'd want to have as a friend because he has such a big heart. His storyline includes that he wins the lottery in California, wins a lot of money. So he is kind of seems like a blue collar worker, worked at a local food joint, was living with his mom. And so when he wins the lottery, he tries to immediately help his family. He buys a brand new house for his mom. He wants to give, I think his granddad a cruise vacation. help his brother and things like that. Um, but as we know, lottery, we think is going to answer all of our problems. But then
Yeah.
then there's the backside of, well, you got this, now you're gonna get this. And I like how the writers use the storyline that the numbers that he had for his lottery are cursed. I thought that was very ingenious. And so here's this very kind-hearted person um, with a curse, following. He's lucky, but
Yeah.
anyone around him is cursed. And unfortunately, that is his burden that he's carrying around on the island. And I like how we get to explore that a little bit and how he doesn't feel like anybody understands that until he meets Danielle, the French woman Rousseau, on the island, and how they kind of have their Kesmet moment of
Yeah.
understanding. And I like that, because uh, Hurley needs somebody. He has to be able to kind of recharge his batteries too, as the social glue, one of the people that is the social glue to the group. Um, yeah, I think Hurley is a sweetheart, and I like the moments that Hurley is given in the show. So yeah, definitely liked him quite a lot, and definitely hope to see continued character development in season two. Well, you mentioned Charlie, and I think that's a good segue to Charlie.
Yeah.
Uh, Charlie is kind of a zombie on the beach in the first episode,
Yeah.
to the point that a big wing drops right behind him, and he kind of like, hmm. Oh.
Yeah.
So, we find out through the season that early on that Charlie is dealing with his own demons that in with substance abuse. We find out that he is using heroin, and that's why he's kind of nonplussed when the wing just kind of drops right behind him. So again, what kind of words did you use to describe Charlie?
Uh, Charlie is witty, wanting to be honorable, and rash. Um, I think obviously he's struggling with his addiction um and the whole process of using and then trying to get clean, presents this level of chaos for him. Um, he has he has this good disposition about him, um, where I mean he does make some not nice jokes at Hurley's expense a couple times throughout the season, uh, about his weight, um, and whether or not that's his true character, or maybe that's his struggling to get clean, or maybe that's because at the time he's trying to help Claire and he really likes Claire. Um, but he seems to want to do right by Claire. Um, he, he seems to have a genuine bond with Hurley. Um, and I think his flashbacks are pretty sad to think about. Because one of them is him in a relationship, but it's all a ruse to try to steal something and make money, but he actually falls for the girl and then,
Hmm.
ends up ruining his first sales pitch by puking everywhere because he's been dealing with withdrawals from drugs, and so it's just and he freaking almost died, like, or he did die, and Jack brought him back, like, so I feel like Charlie's possibly gone through, um, I think you described it at one point like it was maybe the crucible, like this season was not kind to him on so many
True.
levels.
Yeah.
But he still seems to find a way to bring some lighthearted moments and um, yeah, I really like Charlie. And at the end of the season, seeing him discover the statue with the heroin inside with Saeed and realizing he's taken one back with him um,
That was
is
crushing.
really, really disheartening. And so, yeah. What are your thoughts on Charlie?
He is another character that I really like Hurley. And kind of, well, he's not under the radar, but in a way, I would describe him as a bit more of a supporting, while not a natural leader. He's never really a leader, but he's definitely part of the fabric of the community. As you were talking, I was thinking about what he represents between his flashbacks and his time on the island, and I think he's really a good character again for kind of every man, every woman type of experience in the world. Um, Getting really beat down by circumstances, having a dream and then having it kind of go to crap, through, he didn't start out using drugs. He was really into his music and wanting to be successful. But unfortunately, I can't remember if it's his brother. Is it his older brother? I don't remember.
I think so.
Yeah, who kind of, is using, and subsequently Charlie ends up starting to use. And I think the disheartening aspect of his journey, his spiraling out of control, hitting the bottom of the barrel, and then rooting for him as he starts coming up from that barrel and being an
Yeah,
inspiration. And I think he had a lot of growth through the first season. That's why I think, like you said, when he has the statue that has the heroin in it, we are so invested on him basically pulling himself out by the bootstraps, so to speak. Makes it so disheartening and so crushing when we see that he has the statue in his bag at the end of the first season, because we
yeah.
are so invested in him turning his life around. And I don't know how many times have we ourselves either been in that situation where we felt like we are just at the bottom and then trying to find a way to inspire ourselves or to find a support system that is trying to help us get back on our feet, or where we're part of that support system for somebody else, where we're trying to help them to help themselves to, you know, and I really feel like Charlie represents that kind of relationship uh,
Yeah,
for himself, for others, because he does find um, a real friendship with Jack, with Hurley. I think also with Saeed to some degree. And then, of course, I think a big part of that is Claire, and seeing that he finds some purpose. And I think if you have purpose, then you're able to kind of come out of that despair. And again, that's also why it's so disheartening to feel like he got pushed so stressful in the finale, that I know I'm sure you are too, hoping that he doesn't backslide and start using
Yeah.
again. So yeah. Um, so let's go on to I'm going to say the elephant in the room. I don't think we really found out too much about him until maybe episode 2, but John Locke.
Yeah.
He is a big presence on the island. He is our hunter, I'm going to say, our survivalist. We find out in flashbacks that he was going to do kind of a walkabout. He was
Yeah.
part of a tour. He was going to go out in the outback, and then he is denied. He's paid all of his money and all that type of stuff, and then we find out that due to a specific condition, he's actually paralyzed from the waist down. He's wheelchair bound. That they're not going to allow him, and yet we find out on the island he has all this knowledge and I'm not going to say practical experience, but common sense experience, knowledge that makes him the natural person uh, to be the hunter gatherer and explorer that he didn't get to be in the real world.
Yeah.
He's also one of the more not miss yeah, maybe kind of miracle individuals, probably a miracle versus I think anybody else on the island. I mean, he is like 180 from what he was in the real world versus what he is on the island. Um, he also, definitely has a unique approach. I mean, John Locke is, a philosopher in the past. So I like how they embody him with a philosophical and spiritual religious um, kind of representation on the program. So, your words of description for him? I can't
Um,
wait.
I I thought of Locke as capable, knowledgeable, and reasonable, which we were talking offline. It's weird to think of him as reasonable because he's had the instances of using Charlie as bait, um, knocking out Boone and drugging him to free him of his obsession with Shannon. Um, and those are all extreme measures. Um, but he has all of these other moments that um, he's such a great storyteller. Uh, when he's in a scene and he's talking about something, I am so caught up in what he's saying and how he's describing whatever it might be, like the scene where he's having Claire help him build a cradle. And just finding some normalcy for her being 9 months pregnant, no one really wanting to necessarily be around her because they're afraid of the pending baby that everyone's gonna have to take care of. And um, to the moments where, he had moments with Shannon, telling her, hey, you know, everyone gets to start a new life here. If you like Saeed, doesn't have anything to do with Boone. Um, and yeah, uh, I really like Locke. I mean, I think he's probably my favorite character. I think when we see him engage with the hatch, he becomes a little obsessive about it. Um, and that's where all of his focus turns to. So besides being this like massive provider for the community, he decides which he says the Boer have moved on, but I he could probably find other ways to provide for everyone. But he chooses to, with Boone, to try to crack that nut and what's buried in the hatch, which is the unknown, which leads to, this mission to kind of open it up and
Hmm.
provide safety for the everyone else. So yeah, he's just and he's been through so much. Um, I mean, almost tragic to come to terms with a father who's absolutely slimy,
Hmm.
um, and his mother helping with it to where he gives up one of his kidneys. I was just, um, so I think knowing how similarly with Jack, like how bad he's been treated by people who are supposed to care for him the most. Um, I feel like I give him a little more grace with his extreme measures because he does seem in all the other instances to be so reasonable and so willing to kind of like want to help other people,
Hmm.
um, which I appreciate.
Yeah, I think I kept thinking about uh, how problematic he is, um, because he does such good things, thoughtful things. For example, going out and hunting, sharing his weapons, because he has, a case full of knives, and he gives some of the other survivors weapons, so that way they can protect themselves. Um, he tries to be a provider. Um, he also tries to support, like, Charlie, Boone. Those were kind of a little more the tough love approaches versus Claire, which he takes a very more soft and sweet approach, very kind hearted approach. And same with Walt. Like, I really loved the scenes
Yeah.
with both Claire and with Walt. I just think it really showed a sensitivity of Locke. You know, like you said, that tough nut. But he really has a kind heart as well. And that makes him really problematic. And also a very interesting character as a result. Because you really want to like him. And then he does something that's really despicable and kind of
Yeah.
like, I would never do that, and yet he does get the results. It's just that, was it worth the cause to get the effect,
Yeah.
or, result of it? So yeah, it makes him a very problematic character, as a result. I'm going to say another kind of problematic character that we have, and I'm going to say this kind of arises out of the time period of the original broadcast of the show, which was in 2004. So we had a lot going on back then. We had 9/11 in 2001. We had a deterioration of our rights and, the rise of monitoring, detaining people, concerns with Guantanamo and torture and things like that. So Saeed is a very interesting character because he represents um, an enemy, at the time. Um, and yet he is one of those characters that is kind of a leader, but I would say behind Jack, behind Locke, behind Kate, but very capable. He really brings the communications. He also knows torture techniques because that was part of his responsibility when he served in the military. So, Saeed, uh,
Yeah.
your words of description for Saeed.
Um, Saeed, I thought, is haunted by his past, skilled, logical, and intelligent. Um, I think if the group as a whole were to have a leader, um, I feel like Saeed should probably be the leader. Um, I mean, I understand like early on, like he had the feud with Sawyer. They got in a fight. So maybe that skewed the perception from some of the other survivors as who to look to. But Sawyer was very vocal about calling Saeed a terrorist and
Mhm.
you know, racist commentary that maybe hurt his ability to gain trust or form some bonds with other survivors. But I think Saeed is awesome.
Mhm.
Um, he's again similar with Locke. Like he has the awful torture with Sawyer, where he asks Jask's permission basically to do it. Um, and he's clearly distraught afterwards for doing it. Sawyer doesn't care if he's distraught one way or the other. Um, but Saeed um, pushes that line in that one episode where I think it's the episode where Shannon has her asthma attack and they're looking for medicine. Um,
Yeah.
uh, and if we overlook that one discretion, um, he just seems to know what the right course is. He's the one that mentioned before Jack to organize and
Yeah.
try to put people together in different teams to do different tasks. And he has the skills to put together, you know, transceivers and try to send out signals. And, um, he just seems like a logical choice for someone who should be a leader on the
Mhm.
beach. Um, I, I think he has a very dry humor about him where he'll say something um just like his interaction with Boone where Boone's telling him to stay away from Shannon and he's just like what happens if I don't and it's
Yeah.
just so I think I think he has a wide range I think it's Naveen Andrews I think is the actor
Mhm.
he's you know, he's faced torture himself, which happened in the following episode after torturing Sawyer. So karma was definitely coming for him.
Yep.
Um, and just, you know, he's been through a lot. Like trying to find someone, he's coerced to find a terrorist cell in Australia and, having to, you know, burn some bridges with friendships that he's had in the past to do that. Um, so I think along with Locke, they have a bit of a sense of tragedy to their past. Um, I mean, we don't know enough about Kate to maybe declare the same type of description for her past life, but yeah, I think he's definitely one of my favorites as well. I He just always seems like he's in a position where he's on one of the treks to go get something accomplished,
Mhm.
and he's willing to take the lead as they navigate through the jungle or what have you. So, um, yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I would agree. I like that you mentioned the fact that, he was making suggestions very early on and within the first couple of episodes of trying to organize, making sure that, a group was going out for food, somebody was, trying to do the water, scrap metals and, building the fire on the beach. He was kind of, the overseer of that. And I keep thinking about how, given the climate of the world at that time, I thought that was Saeed's portrayal. Obviously, the actor was just absolutely fantastic. I mean, I remember seeing him in The English Patient, was the first thing I'd seen him in. Um, and the way that the writers revealed his character, how they explored and evolved his character over the first season, especially in light of everything that was happening around the world, I thought was very forward thinking, and really giving voice that um, there's more to others, um, that you can't pigeonhole them and stereotype them, that they really have they're we are all similar. We all have our struggles. We all have our strengths. We all have our weaknesses. We have, our spiritual guide, or we're, you know, logically driven. Um, so we're all made up with this similar fabrics. And I really like how they explored that with Said and gave another component to what, you know, Edward Said would say, other, the otherness. And so I like that we got diversity in there. And he's one of many diverse characters. I mean, I'd say every character is diverse. Obviously, we have a lot of, I'm going to say, white representation, um, but we also get some diversity, which I'm appreciative of, especially at that particular point of time when
Yeah.
this was being broadcast. But like you, I really like him. I I think that those initial skirmishes with Sawyer and the way that Sawyer kind of was framing things, and we actually get that in, I think, in the third part of the final finale, where Saeed is on the plane and another guy sits down, white guy, older
Yeah.
white guy, and kind of looks at Saeed with a lot of suspicion and distrust and disdain, and
Yeah.
how that really says a lot in just that moment. How you really, it behooves you to not judge a book by its cover, really, and not judge people just by their skin tone. Um,
100%.
yeah, and so I really like that was put in there, um, and just the way Saeed's character responded, and he shouldn't have to look away. He should be able to look at everybody in the eye, and find that mutual respect. So, yeah, he's had quite the journey. He's also, I'm going to say, a survivalist, very similar to Locke, but he also has the technology aspect to him that we don't really see with Locke. Locke is more, I'm going to say, down and dirty survivalist
Yeah.
versus Said, who is a more trained professional survivalist. So we get, again, kind of that opposing and yet balancing component of surviving an island. So Saeed is a great character, for that, and endowed with the skills that are important. Um, he also has a lot of baggage because of Nadia, and trying to find her, and she is a big driving force for him, and why he ends up forced to um, turn from a college friend, who he really wants to save, instead of that friend becoming a martyr during a time of a lot of, personal bombs on people, and, that kind of thing. So that is very tragic. I like that term that you used, because that was also crushing,
Yeah.
to have to he really wanted to save his friend, and the CIA component and the Australian component were just like, no, we're not here to do that, and we're not doing that. Does he have something to, uh, what is his value? And it really
Yeah.
comes down to knowledge and what the value is. And, what can he bring? And what kind of power does he have through that knowledge? So I think that's a really great segue to our next character. You probably guessed Sawyer.
So yeah.
Yep, yep. So Sawyer is another interesting character, and very colorful. He brought a lot of non-PC through his naming conventions of people on the island. I'm gonna say his nicknames is one of the things that he was kind of known for very early on. Also picking fights, being basically the scavenger. I'm gonna say the vulture of the group because he very quickly. Um, is another scrapper, another person that had to try to survive. But if Locke is kind of down and dirty, he is below that
Yeah.
because he is not opposed to going through all the fuselage and taking things and building his little empire uh, through the items that he holds and using that as a barter system.
Yeah.
So he is a very despicable early on, and when we're not like fearful of the survivors running into the unknown huge creature, whatever it might be in the forest, um, Sawyer is a good visual representation of somebody that we hate early on, until we get the flashback and we find out he continues to be kind of despicable,
Yeah.
um, because he is a con man. But as we peel away the layers and we get that through the interactions with Kate, that we find out that his parents had been conned and his father kills his mother and then turns the gun and commits suicide. All while Sawyer is 8 years old and hiding under his bed. And that has a lasting impact on him. And like many of the other characters, there's baggage that he carries with that. And kind of he also has a tragic story as a result. And it
Yeah.
drives him to be the person that he is today. But like you mentioned earlier, Kate really helps him to kind of try to grow and kind of leave some of that, peel away some of that uh, survival technique that he has, and try to engage more with the group and become someone that brings about solutions and not just barricades against people.
Yeah.
And that, interacting with him comes at a cost. So I am on the edge of my seat, Travis. What are your words of description?
Um, you know, I think did I skip Sawyer? I left Sawyer off. Um, well, go figure.
Oh,
Um,
that is so funny. So on the fly.
uh, Sawyer is I'll use a term he used on Jack. Sawyer is a jackass. Uh, he's uh quietly um deceiving. Like his exterior is gruff and like what have you, but he knows how to, and you maybe expect it from him, but there's another layer where he can be deceitful even when you're not aware of it. Um, and he's unrelenting. He's not afraid to just give it to people. Even when he's being tortured, he's like, "Oh, is that the best you got?" Like, he but he's also severely damaged.
Mhm.
Into the way where I think, I think we might have talked about it, where he doesn't maybe feel like he deserves anything better than what he gives. And maybe that's why he treats people that way, so no one can get close enough to maybe hurt him again. So I do think Kate's relationship with him is key to kind of um, help him. Like, great description, Ray. You pull back the layers,
Mhm.
have him open up. Um, but he's also, I think, becoming more flexible as the season went on. Hurley approached him saying, "Hey, here's the deal. I know you have this. You need to give it to me. I know you need some brownie points anyway." And he just shoots it to him straight, and I think Sawyer's like appreciates that. And there's another time when Boone gets hurt. Kate comes to the beach telling him, "Hey, I need all of the alcohol that you have."
Mhm.
And he reads the room and gives it to her, no problems. So yeah, I think he's able to read the room, read situations really well.
Mhm.
Um, and he's the type of person who, man, you just, especially early on, really don't like. But then he gives you these moments where, man, he's just kind of likable. So yeah, it's hilarious. I left him off. He probably wouldn't be surprised by that.
No, no. I was thinking also the fact that we find out in a flashback that because of what has transpired for him, when he is trying to complete a con, uh, he finds out that the husband and wife that he's doing the con on has a young boy that would have been around the same age of Sawyer when this stuff happened to him, and he immediately pulls out. He'd rather have harm to him come to him than to cause another incident with another little boy that would make another Sawyer. I think it's also very interesting and very telling how damaged he is by the fact that Sawyer is the name of the person that actually conned his parents. That's not even his real name, but
Yeah,
that impacted him so much that he took on the name of the con artist, um, and basically became him,
yeah,
embodied him and became him. And how tragic is that? And how, like you said, how damaged he is as a result of all that. Um, and how he again is another one of those very hard-shelled individuals. And yet there are redeeming qualities about him. And we do see that in particularly in the finales, when he is on the raft with Michael, Walt, and June, and how he is, immediately the rudder falls off their boat, and he, not even hesitating, jumps in and goes after that rudder because he knows how important it is to the group.
yeah,
That he made that, are there sharks in the ocean there? No idea. He didn't even think about it. He just boom went in. Um, Without, and I like that. And he has a really nice exchange with Michael, who he'd been at odds with. Um, so, it is, there are glimmers of hope and change for Sawyer. Uh, there are opportunities for him to be able to turn his life around.
yeah,
Yeah.
for sure.
Like him. Uh, we get a little bit of humor from him as well, which might pop up later in the conversation. So.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, we have another person before we kind of get to three couples that we want to kind of finish up the conversation with. So, want to mention Claire. She is one of the driving forces as far as the island storyline. We do get a flashback with her. She is the young woman who is like 8 months pregnant, and she has kind of the I'm going to say stereotypical situation. She has a boyfriend. They've been living together. She finds out she's pregnant. The boyfriend says, I'm gonna do the right thing. I'm gonna be the dad. I'm gonna be there for you." And then I think she hits about 5, 6 months pregnancy, and he just falls apart and abandons her. She doesn't make a
Oh,
lot of money. Um, and so through the influence of one of her friends, they go to a clairvoyant, a medium, and the medium definitely is connected, definitely sees something up, and becomes kind of an influencer in her life and actually gives her the money to get on the plane that she ends up on the island. He does tell her that she shouldn't be giving up her baby, that she should be uh, taking care of the baby and should be the mom, even though he actually gave her the airline ticket under a ruse, saying, "Oh yeah, go to LA. There's a couple that wants to adopt your baby, and everything's going to be cool." And she takes those words of, taking care of the baby, and as soon as that becomes a driving force for her. She is taken along with Charlie by Ethan, sometimes known as Steve or Scott.
yeah, yeah.
He's one of those characters that is just kind of blends in the fabric of survivors. Um, but she is taken and disappears from a couple of episodes and arrives back in the storyline, not remembering anything, and then eventually has her baby and becomes the catalyst for Danielle coming to the beach, taking the baby with the hopes of being able to trade her baby for her son, who would now be like 16 years old or something. Because their stories intertwine as far as the fact that we find out that Danielle was pregnant when she landed on the island. She was probably about the same amount, maybe a little less, um, far along than Claire is. And so, um, gosh, she represents how scary it would be to go through a plane crash and be 8 months pregnant. And you're on an island and there's not a lot of medication. Thank God you have a doctor
Yeah.
on hand, and some people like Charlie, Kate, and others. Hurley tries to support her early on, and kind of give her some support and care, but generally to be considered I'm not getting to the right word, but kind of a drain on resources because she is pregnant, and then when she has a child, what's that going to mean for the survivors?
Yeah.
For her, for the baby. So there's a lot of unknowns. Very scary for her. So for Claire, did you have any descriptive words?
Um, I put Claire is strong, anxious, and good-hearted.
Hmm.
Um, uh, being lost on a beach, 8 months, 9 months pregnant. Um, you can obviously see the stress that is put on her, but she's also willing to um, put herself at risk. to catch Ethan so that way no one else can get hurt, which says a lot about her.
Hmm.
Um, I feel like there's not I think she just has the one flashback episode, so we don't get too much about her backstory. And there's some episodes where she's not even there. Um, so I think that almost is similar to how maybe the other castaways feel about her, where they try to not necessarily be around her a lot because of the pending baby. But I think she is doing everything she can to try to make ends meet and just be in a good position to where she'll be able to take care of the baby when the baby does come. And when the baby does come, she's terrified. And similarly, so is Kate, who has to deliver the baby. And,
Yeah,
you it's just, yeah, I think Claire is a little bit more of a mystery just from the standpoint that we don't get as much from her as we do some of the other characters. So we still don't know what happened to her while she was taken by Ethan. So,
true.
um, and I don't recall if that's brought to light in future episodes. So I'm curious to see, if any of that plays out. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Um, yeah, I enjoy her character. She is feel like she's kind of on the, sensitive. She keeps a journal. Um, she's cautious. Um, though she does let Charlie in, and does reluctantly give her baby over to him, so that he can take care of the baby so she can rest. And we get some hilarity there because Hurley tries to sing to the baby, which was a fantastic little scene, and then that didn't work, and he says, "Well, that's all I got." And then later, Charlie is for some reason over near somebody, and who you wouldn't expect it, but for whatever reason, the baby seems to acknowledge and find Sawyer's voice soothing. Um, to which Charlie becomes a Klingon to Sawyer, um, to get him to continue speaking, and in kind of an uncharacteristic thing for Sawyer, but also showing a little bit of growth is the fact that towards the end of the episode, he's actually reading a some sort of motor magazine or something, as Charlie is there with the baby, holding the baby, and keeping the baby content, and also able to give Claire some rest. So,
yeah,
some nice humorous points there as well. I know that we have kind of three couplings, or couples, I'm going to say, and they represent different kinds of relationships. So, I think for the first of three is the father-son of Michael and Walt. They have an interesting story. We also, again, like Claire with her boyfriend abandoning her, Michael is in a similar situation in that he doesn't have a relationship with his son early on because his girlfriend decides she's going to law school. She becomes very successful. She takes a job in Europe, um, and basically closes off the opportunity for Michael to be a dad
yeah,
to Walt. And again, it's an unfortunate circumstance. The mother remarries, or she marries, excuse me, she marries another attorney, The attorney apparently adopts Walt as his own, even though apparently we find out that that was only because he really loved the mother, not really so much Walt. Thinks Walt
Yeah.
is really kind of strange or odd because unusual things happen around Walt. And it kind of creeps out the stepdad. So when the mother does pass away suddenly from an illness, Michael goes to Australia where they're living to basically take over parental duties of his son Walt. And it's a bumpy road. A real bumpy road, and it's somewhat hard to watch because Walt doesn't necessarily want Michael as a dad. But fences become mended, um, and it's kind of a real good relationship to see evolve and develop into something more uh, father and son and opportunities that blossom from that relationship.
Yeah.
Um, so, Travis, what kind of descriptive words did you have for that relationship or
Well, with
characters?
Michael and Walt, I putting them together, I thought they were fiery to start.
Hmm.
Um, and which as the season went on, I just felt like they became just more and more dependent on each other.
Hmm.
Um, and each character is so different. You know, Michael's trying to learn how to be a dad, but Walt is, which we've talked about. We really appreciate that the writers gave Walt not just some like background role. Like Walt had the strength to speak up for himself, to not be afraid to make friends. Um, and Michael just kind of had to find a way to navigate just simple communication. Um, and seeing their bond mature and grow and kind of establish into something where they do feel like they both want to be together, instead of just having to feel like they're forced together, which Michael wanted to be a dad from the start.
Yeah.
Like he didn't choose to not be there. But then, you know, but after however many years and he has Walt in his life now, which that's not something he expected to happen.
Yeah.
Um, because he was cut off. So, seeing their journey is definitely interesting. Um, Walt's character, you know, it's interesting that he was close with Locke early in this season, and then towards the end, he seemed to shy away from him to a degree, um, even to the point of like telling Locke not to open whatever it is that he wants opened and
Hmm.
wanting to stay on the island, then to being say, no, we have to leave.
Yeah.
Which gave this kind of weird sense of like, well, what does he know? Like what sixth sense does he have? Um, whether about the island or life in general that gives him this ability, and one that, like you pointed out, his stepdad thought that he had. So,
Yeah.
um, I think that they're interesting, and it's even uh, scary to think about now, knowing that the season finale had them parting ways in the most horrific way possible with
Hmm.
Walt being abducted. So,
Yeah.
um, not fond of that.
No, no, that, yeah, no, definitely not. Um, a second relationship that was kind of explored, and we got a flashback for, was Shannon and Boone. And they are step siblings, I guess, or are they even step siblings? Yeah, step siblings.
Yeah.
Boone is doing well. He works for his mother's business. Shannon's the more carefree, and I'm gonna more irresponsible, or at least portrayed as being irresponsible. Obviously, doesn't have. Um, she's not part of the business, that's for sure. And she has. Uh, sounds like she has orchestrated scenarios that Boone comes and spends money to save her from
Yeah.
various relationships, to the point that it's become an ongoing uh, definition of their own relationship, to the point that, yeah, we have some interesting revelations, to say the least, between them, and not the kind of relationship that we usually expect between step siblings, but does, I'm sure, happen. Closer than kissing cousins, so to
Yeah.
speak. Um, and then we see Boone continuing to care for her, even though it's kind of a detriment to himself. Um, and Shannon finding her wings, Boone kind of finding his, but they were clipped pretty quick because he is kind of one of, our first main character deaths, um, in the first episode.
Yeah.
And as I think you mentioned earlier, Shannon and Saeed develop a relationship that starts to blossom in the first season. Um, yeah, they're interesting. They are like night and day. And again, we get this yin and yang, and a balance of opposites. Did you have words to kind of describe their relationship or their characters?
I just think they're toxic together. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think that they have a benefit of staying together. I mean, there's clearly some, they care about each other's well-being, but Boone is obsessive over her. Um, Even though he wants to help the group and maybe be a leader, he can't help but always come back to focusing on her.
Hmm.
Shannon seems like she's used to a high-end lifestyle, and she tries to combat that with like how can she fit in and help others throughout
Hmm.
the season. So, um, but they're just worse together.
Oh,
Um,
yeah. Toxic is a great descriptor.
like the way that they talk to each other, is just not good at all. They say some pretty nasty things to each other. Um, I mean, I think Boone calls her worthless at one point, or maybe a couple times, and
Yeah.
so it's just not the kind of they're not comfortable scenes to watch just because of how bad they are together.
Yeah. That's true.
So
Very true. And the last relationship is a husband and wife, and that is Jun and Sun. We get the revelation that Sun speaks English. That's one of the big revelations. We also find that their, I'm going to say, true love, kind of love conquers all. Does it really? I feel like their relationship gets explored from that. Sun has a very powerful father, and Jun, we find out through flashbacks, pretty much sells his soul to marry Sun.
yeah,
Um, and it's like many of the other characters, it's pretty tragic. It's very damaging, um, to their marriage. And we see that happen. And where we see other love blossom, we see theirs kind of wilt on the vine, through Sun being able to actually speak English, which Jun did not know. Um, and just a general disintegration through other forces, particularly her father,
Yeah.
and how that disintegrates. Very sad because I really like and like both characters. Um, I'm very glad that they reconciled the in the finale because they did kind of like definitely split. Um, and not talking to each other and avoiding each
Yeah.
other. Jen more than Sun. Sun wanted to reconcile. Jen did not. Um, did I say that right? Sun, yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a good exploration of a relationship that's dying. And yet they do kind of reconcile at the end, to the point where Sun makes him a kind of rudimentary dictionary so that he's able to communicate with Michael, kind of you know, the different aspects of the boat and eating.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
thought is great. There's tension with John because Michael takes or finds the watch, and that creates some tension. Explosive violence, I would say, between him and Michael, and yet somehow they kind of become friends. Um, and then, like I said, Sun and Jun kind of reconcile before Jun leaves. And I just, oh, I love them. I really.
Yeah.
For them, did you have any descriptors?
I think that they're opposites, um, both the relationship and as individuals. Like their relationship is kind of the opposite of from that initial flashback where we see them very lovey-dovey and to where they're very, uh, not it very chaotically. He's very strict with her. And then with Sun, she's, very helpful around camp, building a garden, but she's also very capable of deception. You know, Jin is shown that he can get violent, but we also see that he can be quite gentle and, you know, want to be helpful. So it was nice to see them reconcile towards the end because you just have this, again, sense of pending doom with the raft and not knowing what's going to happen. So having them at least on good terms before he leaves was good to see.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and I just appreciate like seeing even Jen and Michael's relationship evolve where, they're able to communicate despite the language barrier, which is pretty incredible to see.
Yeah, we explore a lot of communication barriers through Jun and Sun because throughout the first season, they might speak in Korean, but they don't translate it. Because I did watch the show with closed captioning, and there were many times when we as the viewer don't get to know what they're talking about, and other times we do.
Yeah,
Um, so I think that very purposeful uh, writing technique there to keep us in the dark, um, which really plays out well and gives more of a bang for your buck, so to speak, when Michael and Jun are able to communicate, even though, Michael obviously doesn't know Korean and um, Jun doesn't know English, but they find a way to communicate, and that I like that how that evolves. Um, I think that's really kind of a nice positive outcome to what's transpiring on the island
yeah.
and through our characters.
Hey everyone, thank you for watching this video and joining Michelle and I on Ride to Stream as we discuss Lost Season 1, the recap. I just want to say that if you can, like, subscribe, join the conversation by putting some comments in the description below. And I also want to let you know that Michelle and I are creators. If you're interested in following our other works, we have all of our usual links in the box below, so check that out as well. And nothing else to do, and get back to the conversation.
Well, we took a break. You may notice that Travis has a haircut, different wardrobe. I have different wardrobe, and probably a couple of different cats in different places. Oh, and I've actually filled in some of my bookcase back there. So it's been longer than a minute, maybe like a week.
Yeah.
But we are back to continue on in our discussion of wrapping up our our reflections about season one of Lost. We had a really good, in our first part, we did a real deep dive about all the different primary characters, I would say, talking about what their storyline was, as well as their strengths, their weaknesses, and interactions with other survivors. And I think we did a pretty good job discussing each one. But now we really wanted to talk a little bit more, kind of going back to our primary questions that we'd have every week, which is what was our favorite scene and what was our the standout character for that week. And so, kind of taking that as a guide, we came up with a few questions or kind of topics that we wanted to discuss. And the first one, which really is very, I'm going to say kind of unique to Lost and one that we touched on quite a bit was how the writers would reveal different things about the characters. Usually through flashback um, is how we'd find out a bit more of the characters and kind of what was their driving motivations. What in their history was driving them forward and how they were responding to the various scenarios and that they were encountering on the island. So, with that in mind, our first area that we wanted to talk about was what were some of the most surprising character reveals. And I don't know about you, Travis. I did try to kind of think back and ruminate on what was just kind of resonated through, for me in
Yeah.
looking back with, I actually didn't go back and look through episodes, so I'm kind of going off the dome. But I don't know, Travis, did you kind of use that same methodology or did you kind of like go back and look at some of the episodes for like what you thought were great reveals?
I'm trying to think of how many I did some off the dome.
Hmm.
Um, and I think there were um one, two, three. Most of them actually were probably off the top of my head.
Hmm.
And then after going back and seeing some sequence, I think I had like six or seven that stood out to me, and I think two of those might have been just from like rewatching some of the scenes when I went back. And I mean there were two that came to my mind instantly as far as like reveals that happened. And one of them is Locke's reveal of starting the journey in a wheelchair, being wheelchair bound.
Hmm.
And then, the whole montage of like the beginning of the episode, you see him staring at his toes wiggling, and then he sees his shoe off to the side, and he grabs it and puts it on. That seems natural. He's in shock, and then when you realize that he's in Australia trying to do his walkabout, but they won't let him because he's in a wheelchair,
Hmm.
and you see that same scene of him wiggling his toes, and he's like looking up, trying to like understand like what's going on. Um, it's absolutely incredible to watch. It's goosebump inducing like almost every time I see the scene, and it's just one of my favorite scenes in all of television just because of how um I remember just how surprised I was seeing it because I had no clue that was going to be who Locke was or the journey that he was on and why the island becomes so important to him. Um, it's such a it's so moving because you also see him try to stand and then he's barely on his feet a minute when Jack's calling him over to help and he doesn't hesitate and goes off and it's just like how does that happen? Um, and that adds to the mysterious nature, not necessarily of Locke, but of like, well, how is that possible? And it
Hmm.
makes me think, well, what's special about the island
Yeah.
to have this happen? So that's the first one that came to my mind.
Hmm.
Did you have one that came to your mind first?
Yeah, actually I did. I mean, I went through and I did my top three for each little topic that we're going to be doing. So, log was actually my second one.
Okay.
My first one was actually finding out that Kate's toy airplane um, belonged to her childhood friend and first love. And we find out more about that airplane. How much that was a motivator for her. You know, one that it was in their little time capsule that they had buried under a big oak tree. Um, that they then, they listened to the tape. It's obvious that Tom cared about her. She realizes how much she cares about him and that little airplane, how much it meant for him uh, by, I'm going to say osmosis, became very, very important to her, what it represented, and I'm going to say kind of an easier time uh, before innocence is lost, before adulthood comes around, and suddenly you have to make a lot of very important decisions in your life. And I know that I was initially thinking that it was a toy from, that might have been her son's or something like that, that it was her child's toy. So when you see that it was actually Tom's toy airplane and how he got it and stuff like that and what it meant for him,
Yeah.
yeah, it just really gave a complexity to her, but to the writing that they took that little extra effort to add a lot of detail and emotion that's attached to that airplane. And the fact that, I mean, she robbed a bank just to get that airplane back. It just goes to show how very, very important that was for her. And I thought
Yeah.
that was such an amazing um, and demystifying moment that gave us insight into her past, um, and just how much that person meant to her. Because she seems to be the type of person that does have loyalty, but she's unable to kind of take root because she's on the run. So I just really liked that scene and what that plane represented. And I don't think anybody could guess that that's what it really, I mean, I really,
Yeah.
for the longest time, until it was revealed, I thought it was like her child's toy and something had happened to her child, um, or that she couldn't be around for the child growing up. So that was, I think, the first one for me, but followed by Locke, and then I have a third one. But um, what was your next one that impacted you
Um,
or you
Mine
felt
is
was surviving?
the the introduction of the monster.
Hmm.
Um, I thought it's scary. Like it's a nighttime sequence. All the survivors are on the beach. They're still like I don't know if it's flames from the wreckage or if it's just fires that I can't remember, but um I made a note of like the time that they took. It's over a minute long sequence.
Hmm.
Um and it's just like a over a minute of like what is that? Like you hear the sound, and there's a couple different sounds that you hear. It's very loud. You see trees crumpling down, and you see how it's impacting the survivors and them slowly kind of looking towards the jungle and standing and getting closer. Um, and I think Charlie's the one who, before they cut to commercial, he's just like looking out and just like, perfect. Like, just a moment of like, well, what else do we have to deal with? But
Hmm.
that seems so supernatural. And I know when first episode, I had never thought of it, and you were the one that said, "Oh, is it a kaiju?" And I was like, "Holy crap, that makes sense." Like,
Hmm.
what else would be like so huge and make such a distinct sound that I can't determine what it is? So that scene has always been like, what a way to introduce the island,
Hmm.
and that there's a lot of unknown there, and it's not just an island. There is something dangerous out there. Um, and yeah, and we don't even see what it is. And we just hear
No.
it, we see the impact of it.
Yeah.
Um, and I just find that really fascinating. I was debating on whether, because I know Locke's thing is character specific, but for the show as a whole, that sequence, you know, might be more impactful just because it's overarching like everyone on the beach.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, um I don't know how to describe if you could watch it seen for the first time, um maybe it's Locks, because I think every time I see the monster reveal, it's like still kind of like, what is that? Like,
Hmm.
is you still have that super intense like shock because like I don't want to be on the beach. I don't want to be there right now.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the second one on my list. So
Yeah. Yeah, and even when they showed in the finale where you see that it's like a black mist or smoke or something like that, I was left wondering, is that what Locke saw when the first time that he kind of interacted with it? Did he see this kind of floating smoke,
yeah,
or did he actually see its a real form. Again, kind of like a kaiju form, um, some sort of corporal, physical form that we're still waiting to actually see. Because, I mean, we don't really see a lot. We see this zipping by of this black kind of mass,
yeah,
transparent mass. So it is kind of interesting. I'm curious whether we're going to see something more a more physical manifestation of it, or is that going to be, is that it? And I don't mean it's like, oh, that's a disappointment, is that it? But um, is that its form that we're only the only way that we're going to see it? Or is there another aspect to it that is yet to be revealed?
Yeah, because I mean, Locke's um when he sees it again in the, I guess it's the finale, like he's afraid of it that time, which
Mm-hmm.
makes it seem like it's looks different than whatever he saw the first time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that makes sense. It's like, well, what did he see the first time? Why is it different now to where he's afraid of it? So, um, yeah, it's very interesting
Yeah,
that
because
there's
in
such
the
a
first,
difference.
yeah, in the first time, I think he almost kind of smiled like he was in wonderment and awe. And you're right, in the second time when he's laying on the ground, facing it, again, we see from the point of view of the entity, and we don't know what he's seen, but yeah, he is frightened, which is petrifying for us as audience because Locke has always represented strength and, the ability to survive. And if something's scaring him, well, then it's got to be something bad.
Yeah, yeah. Um, and I really like the effects that they have when they, whatever it is, and it,
Hmm.
you can see the person get picked up, but you still can't see what it is. That
Yeah.
happened, um, I guess with the pilot, with
Yeah.
Shannon through Boone's drug-induced whatever,
Hmm.
and then the same thing with Locke when he got kind of picked up and dragged. So yeah, we've talked about it. The way that they filmed the season, um, is done in such a way where you get to either appreciate the wonder of the beach in the sequence, or it draws in more questions to like, well, what the hell's going on? Like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
um, so what was your third?
So my third one, got a balance yin yang. So it's a humorous one, kind of humorous. But finding out that Hurley is indeed a millionaire. I just really like that storyline. And, Hurley is such an enduring, or Hugo is such an enduring um, and charming character that you always think, well, being a millionaire will solve all your problems, but it truly comes with its own unique set of problems, and it can feel like a curse. So, I think they did a really nice twist on the idea of, you know, the good and the bad of winning the lottery, that
Yeah,
I really liked. And I think they had a lot of fun playing with that one. And I liked the storyline. I thought it was a great reveal. Um, and it's hinted at, through the first season. Um, that back home Hurley was kind of he says it, he was kind of a hero. Um, the fact that he's in debt to 80,000 for playing backgammon with Walt, and he said, I'm good for it.
yeah,
And just, cute little sayings like that. And then of course, the flashback and finding out that he is a millionaire, how he came to be a millionaire, how he's intersected with Locke at a very high corporate level. He was even on the television that was broadcast in Korea when Jun goes to the commissioner's house, and you actually see Hurley on the television. Just all sorts of wonderful little Easter eggs. I do think they must have had fun with that one. And so it's a fun reveal.
yeah.
So that was my third. How about you?
Um, and just going back to the Easter eggs real quick, it makes me wonder what has been put out that we still haven't noticed yet.
Yeah.
Um, so the for character reveal, the I'll just go with the third one that came to mind. Like
Hmm.
I was struck by how awful Jack's father was.
Hmm.
Um, when the flashback with Jack, his friend's getting beat up. Someone put him to the ground, told him to stay down, and he ignores him, and he gets up, and the kid says, "You should have stayed down," and punches him. So Jack's got the messed up eye, and he goes into the room, and you hear his dad's clinking his
Hmm.
whiskey on ice or whatever it is, and just telling him that he doesn't have it. Like like to not even worry about putting himself in the position because he's not good enough. And it's such a damning thing for a parent to say to their kid. And then, that's of what we've seen of Jack to this point. He's the opening sequence. He's
Hmm.
racing across the beach, trying to help people, save people, administer medical attention, give directions, all this stuff. And genuinely seems like, he just wants to help people survive.
Yeah.
And then to see that he came from a household where his father, I don't know, I don't know, whatever pressure he applied to Jack, and I guess maybe motivated him to become a doctor
Hmm.
or whatever it is. I can't get that sequence out of my head when I think of who Jack became. Um, and I think that's a awful thing to hear, but it's also good to know that a person doesn't have to be defined by, you know, who brought them up or how they were raised. And
Yeah.
um, so another one that I thought was equally, or maybe not, but I mean, I thought about Locke's parents as being awful reveals.
That's true. Hmm.
I mean, Locke lost a kidney out of it. Um, but I think that sequence with just being the one-on-one, and that was the third one that came to my mind when I started the list. So
Yeah. Those are all good. Um, the next topic that we're going to explore is are there any characters that we would have liked to see have more screen time? I did I approached this from the perspective of kind of like pairings. So I looked at like scenes that transpired throughout the first season, and I was thinking about what I would have liked to see more of that way. So for me, um, I would have loved to see more between Boone and Locke and between Walt and Locke. So I felt that Locke has a really good rapport with Boone, in spite of what Locke did to him to kind of like snap him out of, you know, uh, his dysfunctional relationship with his half sister, Shannon. But I did like their interactions. I
yeah,
liked when they were partners. Um, it just really good chemistry there. And by that same token, I thought that Walt and Locke together, I would have loved to have seen some more scenes between them. And hopefully
yeah,
we will. I mean, Boone, obviously, rest in peace. But with Locke, hopefully, maybe he will go on the warpath to go try to find Walt. They had a good relationship. It was respectful, though, which is something that I liked about the two of them, is that Locke treated him like an equal, another
Yeah.
survivor, not a 10-year-old little boy. Um, and I thought that was a great way to write that relationship, as a way to compare and contrast with a parental relationship between father and son, obviously Michael and Walt. So I really liked um, what they were doing there. And obviously, um, you can't have like a ton of scenes because I think that part of the appeal with Lost is that the melodrama. So obviously you're going to have little snippets here and there of conversations, and that helps build tension, build the drama. Um, but just a little bit more,
Yeah.
with those two pairings, I think would have been nice. So that's my first one. What about you? What's your top?
My first was Hurley. Um,
Yeah,
I I still can't believe like his first flashback wasn't until episode 18.
yeah.
Um, and I love that episode. I mean that was also one of the surprising reveals was in that episode. He how adventurous he was and like willing to like go out on this expedition by himself
Mm-hmm.
to try to talk to Russo about the numbers. Um, but he's such a likable person.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he has this perception of what people need. Um, but he also has limits where he has a breaking point, whether it's with the food or with the numbers.
Yeah.
Because I know he lashed out at Boone at one point because he was having stomach issues, um, and he lashed out at Russo because she told him she didn't know anything about the numbers, and his chaotic like I want some freaking answers now. Like
Mm-hmm.
she actually found connection over that because she's probably over 16 years felt
Yeah.
more of that at losing her child um and so he's great to watch on screen, so I'd love to see more of him, which is why I'm interested in season two because I don't remember how much of each character is on screen. um but he's just so, I don't know, just natural, fun loving charisma about him. And he seems like he could get along with anyone.
Yeah.
Like he was even able to like bargain with Sawyer without having to really give anything back. Just like was able to talk to him on his level, and um, so yeah, I definitely would have loved to see more of him throughout the season.
Yeah. One of my parents is actually Hurley and Charlie, so building off of yours. The scene of Hurley and Charlie together with the baby was absolutely fantastic, and I was like, yes, please, more of those, because that was darling,
Yeah,
and just so full of humor and fun, and was so light. You they're good together as well. Again, I can't say enough about the chemistry, the way they went about picking the actors for each role, and how well on screen that chemistry really comes across. And I thought Hurley and Charlie were great together. I thought they had good banter, good comedy timing. Definitely more of that. So that's
that
my second one.
and that scene where Hurley's trying to help Charlie fish. and Charlie like dives in the water. It looks like they're just genuinely laughing
Hmm.
together. Like it seems so natural, and they might be. They might have been like cracking up at, watching Dominic Monaghan dive in the water with his spear. Um, yeah,
I
they're
do
a great
actually,
duo.
yeah, and I, I don't know anything about Hurley, the actor that portrays Hurley, but I could almost imagine that he might be a comedian. I'll have to look after we're done discussing, but so in a couple of years I'll go and look it up. But but I do think that he's got real comedy timing, and so I do kind of wonder if there wasn't some ad-libbing, because I do feel like Hurley understood, the actor playing Hurley really understood his the directive for the character.
Yeah,
So I do kind of wonder if he didn't do some ad-libbing that got to be included because it just seems like so natural. Just really good natural performance. Um, Such ease. I totally am right there next to him thinking, yeah, this is Hurley. This is him
yeah,
dealing with this or that. Yeah, I totally believe that this is the guy that would create a golf course up on top of the mountain just to give, everybody a break from all the tension that they're feeling. So,
yeah, yeah. Um, and then there's a sequence on the golf course where Hurley and Charlie have the golf clubs and they're like waving around, trying to distract Jack.
yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
um, um, my second one, I was thinking, well, just Locke in general.
Hmm.
Um, I think I mentioned either in the finale or during the first segment of the wrap up where he's such a good storyteller. Um, and when he has a conversation with someone, it just seems so meaningful. Like he's genuinely trying to be there for that person and help them. Um, whether it's Jack in the jungle with the white rabbit, Sawyer when he's trying to find that boar, um, you know, talking to Walt about like, hey, why did you burn down the raft? And but having the trust to say, hey, I'm not telling anyone, like,
Yeah.
and just having the, and so he just has this ability to be not just aware of what people need, but just to be there as someone to listen to or offer really good advice. Obviously, we've talked about his methods sometimes, but I think I said earlier, I could just really watch his scenes over and over again. Um, like even when he confesses to Saeed that he was the one that came up behind him, it's like, holy crap! Like,
Hmm.
like um, that's incredible. Like, how do you do that and Saeed not pull the trigger? And I think it's because for whatever reason, I think most people believe in Locke's capability.
Hmm.
Minus maybe Jack, um, who just thinks he's a loon at this point. By
Yeah.
the season's end.
Yeah.
Um, but I mean, I don't know what episode it was when Jack was talking with Charlie, and Charlie was like, "No offense, Jack, but if I put my money on anyone to help us survive, it'd be Locke."
Yeah.
Um, so um, I agree with you. Seeing the interactions with Locke and Boone would have been cool. Him and you're right. Like having Walt be more than just a child on the show
Hmm.
and have a voice, and those interactions with Locke helped him,
Hmm.
I think, have a voice and to where he was comfortable speaking up to Michael about what he thought about Locke and being able to have his own friends. And um, so, yeah, that was my second.
Okay. My third. is having more scenes between Sun and Kate. I thought they had a good rapport, and I thought it gave another insight into two women on the show, and their female relationship between the two, and what they're, giving us some more emotional context that we might not otherwise have, especially Sun, who uh, kind of ostracized, kind of distanced because, you know, everybody thought she spoke only Korean, and then find out that she spoke English, kind of broke some trust, because why didn't you just say that you could speak English? Um, but the fact that she does connect with Kate, and that they're able to have a relationship and emotional support. Um, Similar to, I think, to what Sun gets with Jack, the male perspective, to help her to kind of understand and come to terms with things, um, with her relationship with her husband that's strained at the time. But definitely more scenes between Sun and Kate. I think I relate well to those characters. So having, more scenes between them that explore their emotional journey would have been interesting for me.
Okay. I
And your
uh
third?
so I went with Jin on the third one.
Mm-hmm.
Um because not that he was, I don't know, I felt like Sun was more present, and that's, I think, obviously a language barrier thing. Because during most of the season, if he spoke, we didn't always see on captions like what he was saying.
Yeah.
Um, and knowing that he and Son started off so strongly,
Mm-hmm.
and how his journey with her father's company as like this enforcer, like obviously changed the scope of their relationship. Um, but it would have been, but as you get through the season, you kind of see um, that the way he approached her earlier with the flower and being gentle
Mm-hmm.
clearly, change with trying to like cover her up when she's on in a bikini, or like lead her away and she falls because he's grabbing her too hard and pulls on her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but then you see the dual side of like um him willing to help Michael build a boat despite this earlier in the same episode, Michael beating the ever loving crap out of him.
Mm-hmm.
Um, feeling remorse for, I don't know how he described it, for torturing Son, or he, he apologized for like, I don't know, I can't remember the word he used, but being too hard on her.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I found it interesting that, we really haven't heard a lot of what he's had to say throughout the entire season.
Yeah.
So it would have been interesting to kind of have a better understanding of who he is instead of just the visuals. Because early on, it was like, ooh, him and Sawyer are up there as like not the best people on the
Yeah.
season. So, um, and I'm hoping with them reconciling, you know, um, I I hope that is a positive, because I know the season ends off with the boat scene with Walt being
Yeah.
abducted, and we don't see what happens because Jen jumps in after Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so um, yeah, that's my third. I think if I'll just add in a runner-up, I did think it would have been nice to see more between Shannon and Saeed.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, obviously there was, she had the trauma of losing her brother, so that impacted their time
Yeah.
together. Um, but the moments that they did have together, it just felt really genuine.
Yeah.
Um, just makes them seem like they would be a good couple. So
Yeah, maybe we'll see more of that in season two, since they did kind of reconcile there at the end, and she instigated giving him a huge embrace when he makes it back safely with Charlie and Claire's child. So,
yeah.
well, then the next topic is favorite flashbacks. And you've come up with lots of good stuff, and I'm like, oh yeah, I would have said that, but maybe I'm saying it somewhere else. So, but do you want to start off with your favorite flashback?
Oh my gosh. So um, I have four highlighted. Um, and so I think um, I'm not going to go with I'll go with something lighter. I'll pick one of the lighter ones.
Okay.
Um, because I reference, or so I'll just go with kind of the connective tissue of Hurley's flashback episode
Hmm.
where he's like trying to tell his mom the numbers are cursed. She slaps him. And it was like, well, we don't talk about that. And then she like falls and he gets arrested and she looks at him like, and he's like, yeah, no curse, huh? He's in the uh his lawyer's office and he's trying to tell him all this stuff's been happening to the numbers. And he's like, oh no, you're doing great. Your sneaker business factory burned to the ground, but you'll earn dividends on it or something. And he's like, oh, nothing's cursed. And then someone falls out the window behind him. Um, and then the last sequence is when someone's on a rickety ladder trying to do a light bulb. He's like, dude, he just points up to him, like, don't do that right now. It just
Yeah.
so I'll go towards the lighter end of the spectrum that's more humorous, because some of the other options are just like, heavier and so I'll go with the lightheartedness with those moments with Hurley.
Okay. So, looking at mine, I have romance, torture, and mistaken identity for my three. So romance is Jun and Sun's courtship and marriage. I really like that. It's very sweet. It's not a unique take on kind of the forbidden love, but um, it is kind of unique that the man will go to any lengths for his relationship with her. That is sweet, maybe unhealthy. Um, and we definitely see as time goes on that it impacts their relationship to the point that they don't want to be together, but they don't tell each other. Um, and what started out as sweet and heartwarming becomes um, unhealthy, and you kind of think maybe they're better apart, but you still hope that they'll be
Yeah.
able to save their marriage and find new ground where they can actually live and grow between them rather than all the other influences, particularly her father and the father's business. being so much of a like a black cloud over their relationship. Um, that really, impacts and define the relationship in a, an unfortunate way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that that was a favorite because we see so much evolution in their relationship between what was in the past and then what they're experiencing on the island and how that continues to evolve through the entire season. So, I really felt that that was a really good storyline and a, a great flashback that then mediates or compares with what's transpiring on the island. So
And
that's
like the whole idea of Jin doing anything, culminates in like that very emotional scene where he apologizes to her, she gives him the dictionary,
yeah,
and he has the mindset of I'm gonna save you. I'm gonna build this raft and go out and get rescued for us. And um, yeah,
it's very impactful and it's very personal. Um, and it's one of the storylines that I think really does deliver. I mean, they all do, but that's particularly impactful. Um, and you really buy into that relationship
yeah,
and the disintegration of it, the pulling apart, and then that effort to start rebuilding. Um, and obviously, that's what we're left with at the end of the season. So, looking forward to hoping for more of their relationship coming back and becoming even stronger in the
yeah.
second season if it goes that route. But yeah, how about for you? Second one?
So the first one that I thought of on the flashbacks is I just um Locke's realization of what happened after he has had his kidney removed and he's driving in the car and he's just screaming and hitting the rearview mirror. He's so distraught. Um, it, similarly with like who Jack is, it's like John's been through the ringer in a way that no one else knows about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yet he still finds a way to try to want to help people. Um, and just watching that sequence, knowing how like crushed he is in that moment is so hard to watch. Um, and just trying to imagine what that would be like for someone to like, I mean, have the like wool pulled over their eyes in such a destructive way.
Mm-hmm.
Um, while also learning that his mom had a hand in it. Like, um, that was the first one that came to my mind when I thought about the flashbacks,
Mm-hmm.
and just how awful
Yeah.
that is. So that's the second one.
And with that flashback, they didn't um elaborate past that, but I'm making an assumption that he ended up in an accident of some sort that day and became paralyzed. That that whole deal that happens precipitates him becoming paralyzed and wheelchair bound. So not only did he lose the kidney, but he lost the use of his legs too.
Yeah,
That's what I'm kind of thinking the continuation of the flashback will show. I could be way wrong, but I just think that, kind of given his bad luck in that regard,
yeah,
that could be the real icing on the cake. You know, life is a bitch type of thing, wouldn't that be something that could, just continue to be, stacking more on his plate, and have that happen too. So,
yeah. Oh,
yeah.
poor one.
Speaking of bad things, and torturous emotional torture. My second one is basically Saeed's life prior to the island, and more importantly, um, giving visual and voice to Saeed as what would be a basically an enemy to the U.S. and thinking of the time frame that his storyline would have been taking place, in the original broadcast, 2004, 2005.
Yeah.
I thought that that was actually very timely for that kind of um, character study and background that they gave Saeed. So that's another flashback that I really enjoyed, and it also sets the tone of, you know, how he's kind of a paradox, just like John is. I mean, all of them, they all have kind of their paradox of how they were in their real life or in a prior, in their background versus
Yeah.
how they come to be on the island and the type of person that they are when they're on the island. So I really thought Saeed's flashback, and we get two, we get a twofer for with
Yeah.
Saeed. So, him in the army as a communications officer, but also as a fellow coming up in the ranks and being good at torture. Um, and then his being detained by the Australians and the FBI, CIA, guess, CIA.
Yeah.
And how he's, you know, manipulated by the governments to find that explosive material.
Yeah.
Um, it's,
And not
yeah,
caring about him at all. Like,
no, no, at the end of the day, not caring and not caring about, it goes to show the type of person that uh, Saeed character is, that he's trying to save his college friend um, because his college friend has been manipulated. Um, and it's an extreme. It can only be this or that. We can't have the middle of the road. And I think that's a very telling um, storyline and timely to today even.
yeah.
So that was my
Yeah.
second one. What about you? I think you're on
Um,
third.
yeah. Um, oh, so I will say, I'll go with uh Sawyer talking with Jack's father in the bar.
Hmm.
Um, just the seeing how far Jack's father, I don't know if the correct word term is to say he's fallen or come to realize from the person that he was on his bender. Um, and in that moment, Jack's father is trying to give good advice to Sawyer, although that advice leads to Sawyer killing someone.
Hmm.
Um, so you have this, it's almost like this weird, like where Jack's father even admits that he could fix everything by making a phone call, but he can't. He's just not capable of doing that. Um, and but in the same breath, he's not capable of helping Sawyer because the advice he gives him is not the, you know, not necessarily the what Sawyer should hear in that moment.
Yeah.
So it's just it's not too long of a scene either. It's just a couple minutes, but there's some funny quips in there where his father talks about his old saying of the uh Sox not winning the series, which then Jack
Hmm.
later says, which makes Sawyer realize, oh, wait, you're the son that he was talking about.
Yeah.
Um, so that scene has so much connective tissue to it. Um, and right now I'm trying to think, was there a TV on in that bar? Was there something on the TV that was relate like an Easter egg? So that's where my brain is now wondering.
Yeah, I think it was sports because I originally had thought that the Hurley scene was um in that
Okay.
flashback and it wasn't. I think it was like sports or something. Yeah, but yeah, I was checking.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, my
Um,
my third follows right after Sawyer getting not the right advice, and the fact that Sawyer unknowingly becomes a hired gun, um, and kills who he thought is Sawyer, only to find out
yeah.
that he's been used. And that's a pretty dramatic moment. It's so telling that I think that it's making a complete transition for Sawyer, from I forgot what his real name is because they reveal that name in the flashback when he's in the police station and they tell him, you've been 86th from Australia.
Yeah.
And the cop knows his real name and even and says it. But I feel like that completes the transition of identity for that person to become the new Sawyer, the man that he wanted to kill. He's now
Yeah.
killed what's inside of him, or maybe did. So that was such a incredible moment, because you're thinking, okay, he's not going to, and he didn't. And then he gets this advice, and you're like, no, don't give him that advice.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and then he does it, and excuse me, there's no going back. You can't take
Yeah.
that back. So that's why it's a favorite flashback for me. This one's hard because our next one is our we kind of go into favorite flashback here, but then the next two topics that we have are our favorite dramatic or emotional moment versus our favorite humorous moments.
Yeah.
So you mentioned about Sawyer's conversation uh with Jack's father in the bar. So for me, one of my favorite moments, emotional or dramatic moments, is when um, Jack says goodbye to Sawyer, and they're in the forest because Sawyer's trying to create a new mast for the raft,
Yeah.
and Sawyer, had been making kind of little connections, and then when Jack comments about the Sox not winning their championship, that's like the last little click. And the fact that Sawyer, has really come quite a ways in uh his effort to be more human and make more connections that Kate's helped
Yeah.
us over this season. And I was feeling it when Sawyer tells him his story about meeting Jack's dad in the bar and their conversation. And that was really an emotional and dramatic moment for me. And it was one that continued to resonate for me. I know it's a more recent one, but um,
The
yeah.
way he tells it.
Oh yeah. Just,
Yeah.
they're all storytellers. I mean, I think, and that's a con man. Con man tells a good story. that seems truthful. Obviously, we know it's true because we've seen it in the flashback with Sawyer. So we know this has taken place, in this realm. So yeah, that was one for me. How about you?
That was my one.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah. Um, not much. I mean, more to say. Like, I don't know it makes me wonder how many times they did that scene because the cadence, like the pauses, like so well done.
Hmm.
Um, and like seeing Jack just react with his facial expressions once he realizes and Sawyer says Christian and he knows he's talking about his dad and um uh yeah, definitely gets you in the feels for sure.
Hmm.
Definitely emotional scene. Um I will jump to a second scene
Okay.
that I debated on. It was my also on my flashback list.
Hmm.
Um Jin's flashback with his father.
Mm.
Um
Hmm.
and Jin told everyone his father was dead. Um and he apologized to his dad because he was ashamed because his dad's a fisherman and I'm assuming with like a hierarchy with class or wealth, had something to do with maybe why maybe Sun didn't think Jin should meet her father in the first place. But Jin's father, you know, tells him to do what he needs to do, like to run away to America,
Hmm.
get away from her family and then, you know, reconnect and make his marriage work. Um, I think that says a lot about Jin's upbringing and maybe when we've seen these kind moments throughout the season from Jin trying to feed people,
Hmm.
um, you know, canning Hurley the fish earlier in the season when Hurley thought that Jin hated him. Um, and being able to do that, all of these things despite having the language barrier. So that conversation with his dad kind of gives you an idea of maybe how he was raised,
Hmm.
um, and maybe how hardened Sun's father and those experiences made him.
Yeah.
Um, so I'll add that one as my second one because I also had it as a flashback favorite too.
Hmm.
Um, what about you? What was your number two on the list?
Yeah, so in no particular order, but Saeed's being held hostage by Danielle and how tables turned, and how she's electrocuting him in small doses,
Yeah,
and how, he was already injured from her trap, and then now, trying desperately to make a connection with her so that she won't continue to torture him. So it's kind of like, yep, karma came right back around.
big time,
Yeah.
big time. And their chemistry. I mean, we've said that, but
Yeah.
their time together on screen in that episode, um, he's doing everything he can to listen to her and understand what she's saying, while also recognizing that she's been alone for so long.
Yeah.
Um, oh, and Naveen Andrews, who plays the lead, his facial expressions are equally
Hmm.
uh expressive. Like when he's getting tortured and he's in great pain versus like him trying to like have a quiet conversation with her and
Hmm.
connect, like you said, like, oh, yeah, that's really good. Um, Oh, let's see. So now I have to pick a third one. Um, so okay, I'm gonna go with a scene I really like. It's not too long,
Hmm.
um, but it's very dramatic. It's the opening sequence of the episode after Claire is taken. And you see Jack and John running through the jungle,
Hmm.
intense music. They're running at a quick pace, and then John is able like to spot something off the side at because of course he can. And he's able to see that there's footprints on and the struggle and the phrase where he says, "Oh, I think they've been taken."
Hmm.
And then Jack starts shouting for Charlie and Claire, and John is just like he shushes
Hmm.
him. And that scene is just so intense. Um, it it kind of creates, I feel like, the separation of Jack and John on their perspectives, where and maybe for the remainder of the season too, where John's like, we got to go back, we got to coordinate search teams. Jack's like,
Hmm.
no, we're going right now. We're go the whole way. And John is thinking about protecting Jack. Jack is
Hmm.
like, screw that. We're we're just going all out until we find them. Um, and maybe that's where the clash of Jack and John begins because um, Jack doesn't want to hear what John has to say. He just wants to tell him, okay, where do I go?
Yeah.
And but that initial sequence where they're racing through the jungle and they find the scene where her luggage is, and clearly someone had been dragged away. Um, so well done.
Yeah. So it's funny that you picked that one because my third one takes place just a little later in that episode where and it it's the cause of the fact that Jack was so concerned about going forward without really thinking about what he was doing and how it impacted others and threatened other people's lives. So, one of my favorite dramatic moments was Charlie's apparent death. You
Oof.
come up and you see him hanging, and you're like, oh my God, they're killing off a main character. And
Yeah.
Charlie, who we all like and, want to cuddle up like a little teddy bear, because he's just that type of person. And here he is. You see him hanging from a tree. It's rainy, it's dark, it's gloomy, it's scary. You're thinking, oh my God, Ethan actually left him for dead. And Jack just would not give up on him. Just such a, oh my God, heart racing. Definitely a very dramatic scene
And whoever did the
for
makeup
me.
on him, he looked dead.
Oh yeah,
Like the all the marks on like the oh, it's such a gruesome scene.
yeah.
Oh, heart pounding. You're right. Kate bawling her eyes out because Jack won't stop, even though he did stop for a moment,
Yeah.
and the elation when Charlie sucks in that first breath. I mean, this was
Oh
definitely on my
yeah.
list. Um, but it's oh, I'm trying I'm trying so hard to like counterbalance the doom and gloom that some of the season brings. Oh, yeah, no, it's heart-wrenching.
Yeah. Well, on that note, just like the television show, which pulls on our heartstrings in one moment and then gives us a ray of sunshine and a spot of humor. And our second to our last kind of top three lists is our favorite humorous moments. So, Travis, do you want to start us off on favorite humorous moments?
Um, I feel like the ones that I mentioned were ones that were just kind of like really quick, like passing moments that just make me laugh.
Hmm.
So these aren't in any order. Um, but there's the scene, and this is from going back and watching scenes, and I
Okay.
forgot how much I laughed at this scene. It's when they're hearing noises in the fuselage, and Jack assumes, oh, Sawyer's rummaging, and then
Yeah.
you hear Sawyer's voice say, how does he say? He says, "Right behind you, jackass," and it just, and I feel like that's like the epitome of these really funny moments that they place in these like throughout different episodes that really kind of help cut the tension.
Hmm.
So that's the first one I'll mention.
Okay, sounds good. Um, so since you mentioned Sawyer, I also don't have them in any particular order. I will put down a Sawyer card as well. And I thought him getting fitted for glasses was absolutely hilarious. Um, as a person that wears glasses, you too, it's always quite the okay, is one better or two better? And the fact that, he's on an island, they have a limited number of glasses, and the Kitty Wampus glasses that Jack comes up with for Sawyer is hilarious. I mean, great payoff. Um, a great funny bit. And it's those little things that really make the show.
Yeah.
Did it have to be in there necessarily? Maybe not, but it does kind of knock Sawyer down a peg. You know, he's it's a little hard to be a tough guy when you have this going on,
Yeah.
because he's doing a lot of reading. And yeah, just loved it. So that was one of mine.
And
Uh,
didn't Hurley like, is it Hurley that belts out laughing at him when he puts them on?
probably, probably.
Oh yeah.
Your second one?
Um, oh man. Um, I'll say, mm, da, 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 da. Uh, I'll go with the sequence with Hurley. Um, and he's listening to music. And this is really brief. I don't even know if it qualifies as being super funny, but
Hmm.
it kind of ties stuff together when he's has the headphones on, he's sitting there, and then the music blips for a second before stopping,
Hmm.
and he just like taps on his CD player, and he's just like, "Son of a bitch," and and because you had pointed out early on, like a lot of these sequences seem to be tied to him listening to music.
Yeah.
Um, and I think it's the finale that we realize, oh, those were actually his
Hmm.
headphones. He didn't get that from someone else or find it on the beach. Those were actually his thing, and that's the music that he. So I just something quick and funny that kind of ties stuff together. Um, so yeah,
My second one is a flashback, but and of course we talked about it in the original episode because we both really enjoyed it. And of course, that's Hurley's dash to the airport that kind of reminds me of like the old O.J. Simpson Samsonite luggage commercial or something like that. I really felt like, dashing to the airport, trying to, curse and tow, and, Hurley just having a devil of a time trying to get on the plane. And he
yeah,
encounters all these different hurdles, you know, um, and we get a few little cameos in there which is really cool. And then he does actually make it onto the plane sweating. He sees Walt, gives him a thumbs up, and he sits down in his seat, kind of like relieved he made it. Um, and of course, Walt gets a big grin on his face, and that that whole flashback, and it's pretty long. I think
Yeah.
it's like one of the longer ones of the entire season. Just love it. You know, it's Hurley. It's a curse. And in spite of that curse, damn it, he's getting on that plane. And
Yeah.
you know, his little conversations, the cameos, everything just clicks. It's just wonderfully done, wonderfully acted, and yeah, just great. So that continues to be probably one of my favorites. So
Yeah. Oh no, I have to pick a third one.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
um, do I give it to Charlie? Do I give it to Hurley? Um, there's three. Um, so I'll highlight both characters.
Okay.
Uh, Hurley's building the golf course. He's given his speech about how everyone's stressed out and just worried about how they're gonna die and they need a stress reliever and talking about, whatever his speech is, he says polar bears. And Michael's like, polar bears? And all it is Charlie going like, you didn't hear about the polar bear? And just like a brief moment, and it's the delivery. Um, and yeah, I really feel like the cast is able to deliver on
Hmm.
these lighthearted moments so well, on top of like the dramatic stuff that they're great. Because I feel like it's just necessary to balance out the show. So I mean, I could go on because I literally have several others
Hmm.
um that I could mention. Um, what what is third on your list?
Oh, Hurley's golf course. So I'm not gonna, you know, expand on it. You've already said it. And we've talked about the golf course in different parts through this longer recap episode. So I'll leave it at that. I thought it was brilliant. I thought it would, you know, Hurley the character reading the room and doing something about it. You know, we often talked about how he seemed to be the social fabric or social worker type of individual through the season. And then here's just another, you know, situation where he read the room correctly and did something for others, you know, which is his MO. Well, that brings up our very last one as we finish up this episode and put it to bed, so that way all of you can you know, kind of ruminate over what would be your favorite moments and things like that. Obviously, Travis and I have a lot, but we also are trying to temper that enthusiasm. Just
Oh my gosh, we could talk about this season for hours more. I mean,
yes, yes, we could. But we're going to finish up this one, this summary recap of season one by giving a little love to standout guest performances. You know, there's quite a few, some that are on the screen for a little bit, some that are there a bit longer. And I'll go ahead and start. I think probably the same person is also on your list. No particular order, but Jack's dad, Christian. Um, by and far, quite you know, quite a force, quite a presence in the first season. We see him several times in Jack's flashbacks, and we
yeah.
even get him in a Sawyer flashback as well. So I'd have to give it up and say that he's got a be one of the best standout guest performances in season one. Just for the his the actor's presence, the
Yeah.
way that his character is written, um, that he has to be a bit of an a-hole, and a tough love dad type of individual who's also got a very prominent dysfunction and substance abuse while trying to also balance being a doctor who everybody's supposed to respect and trust. Um,
Yeah.
and basically his downfall. We're getting the trajectory of, um, what Jack could end up going through. If he's not careful, I guess.
Yeah.
It's one possible path for Jack is to follow in the footsteps of his father. So for that, I would say that Christian was an incredible guest performance. How about
Yeah,
you?
he's on my list.
Yeah.
So I'll list a second person that's on
Hmm.
my list, and that's Russo. Um, we've talked about it. When she's on screen, there's just a mesmerizing quality about her gaze and
Hmm.
how expressive she can be with uh, whatever feeling she's having at the moment. Like from being inquisitive when she's torturing Saeed to the end after taking Claire's baby, where she's completely emotionally wrecked at what she's done and not getting Alex back. And
Hmm.
um, like she, it's like almost like she commands the screen when she's on it. She's so captivating. Um, so yeah, she's brilliant.
Yeah. So she was also on my list. So all the things that you said, Mira Furlan, who unfortunately has passed away. Um, yeah, incredible role for her. Wasn't huge, but she was present in every second that she was on screen, and just the spectrum of her performance um, in every time that she was on the show was incredible. And just, I think it goes to show that, how much an actor can bring to these supporting roles and just really bring it home and really sell it without going over the top. And
Yeah,
she has such presence and such grace, um, and just an incredible ability to show um, the fragileness of motherhood, um, the toughness of being a scientist, and a survivor. Surviving on an island for 16 years, pretty much by herself, as far as we know,
yeah,
and to not go stark raving mad. Um, so just she packs all of that in her performance as Rousseau.
big time.
Um, yeah, my third one. And in part because I knew of the actor from another show, and that is Locke's dad. I think his name is, oh, now I can't remember his name, the actor's name, but um, Locke's father just, is a great performance, a nice part for the actor, and just again, kind of like playing good guy, bad guy, and you just know he plays it off just enough that you just know this is not going to end well. And sure enough, it doesn't. He was really using his son, making sure that he used him in a way that it would be his son's decision to want to give, one of his kidneys, donate one of his kidneys, and that
Yeah.
just heart-wrenching. So that was my
Oh.
third. How about you?
Um, yeah, he was on my list too. He's so slimy. I it just um between him and Jack's father, man, talk about having it rough. And John didn't even know his dad for most of his life. So,
Yeah.
but he was still literally and emotionally scarred from his father being a presence in his life. And um, it's awful, like awful.
Yeah.
So, um, but you have actors who come in and play these roles. And I think if you get a viewer to think, oh man, I hate this character, I think the actor has done a great job. Like,
Yeah.
ooh, not fond of them.
And one of those characters that you just love to hate.
Yeah, big time. Yeah.
Well, that was quite the journey of our recap and kind of summarizing what we really loved about the show, what we love to hate about some of the characters. What did you like? What really resonated for you in season one? We'd love to have a dialogue with you. Um, definitely put down comments. What did you like the best? Who would you have liked to see more screen time? Did Boone exit the season way too soon? Did you want to see more of Boone? Tell us what you thought. We'd love to hear more of, you know, uh, what struck a chord with you. Obviously, we're trying to keep it contained, but as we both admitted, we could go on and bring up a lot of other scenes and character moments that really resonated for us. So if we didn't say one of your favorites, definitely pop it down in the comments and tell us what your favorites were. So with that, thank you so much for sticking out for however long this is episode's going to be in the end. We do sincerely appreciate your passion for Lost. You are in our club, man. Um, for being a Lostonian. I don't know. Maybe we got to make up a term, but
Yeah.
we definitely appreciate that you're tuning in to listen to why we're so passionate about Lost, and the fact that we are very much looking forward to season two. And we hope that you will join us each Friday as we start getting into season two. Obviously, I will continue to be the newbie. I don't know what's happening, and looking forward to how each episode reveals new things about our characters. And obviously, Travis, who knows a bit more than I do, who has seen the entire series. But definitely, we welcome you. Please come along with us. Subscribe. Hit the notification bell. Even if you don't, know that we have a new episode up every Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And definitely leave a comment. We appreciate you. Thank you for coming along with us. And until next week, see you again.